British royals have posed for a new formal photograph. There, she's the only splash of color in this picture, but take a close look at her tiara.
When Queen Camilla demanded that Princess Catherine hand over her royal tiara, Middleton is making her tiara debut as the Princess of Wales. The request stunned everyone, but no one was more furious than Prince William. Stuff to do with family overwhelms me quite a bit. You know, worry or stress around family side of things. That does overwhelm me quite a bit. And what he did next will shock you even more. The afternoon sun spilled golden light across the blue drawing room where Princess Catherine stood arranging white roses in a crystal vase. The ritual steadied her. Something simple, something hers after a week that had demanded every ounce of composure and strength. With William away on a 3-day tour, the palace felt hollow and empty, the silence pressing in on her like another burden to carry. That silence was broken by the click of Queen Camilla's shoes on the marble. Queen Camilla entered, her smile polite and practiced. Yet Catherine instantly sensed there was an ulterior motive behind the smile. She had come to recognize the signs, moments wrapped in courtesy, but sharpened by intent. "Catherine, darling, I trust you don't mind me dropping in." Camilla began smoothly before gliding into an antique armchair by the window. "There's something rather important I wish to discuss with you privately." Catherine set the roses in her hands aside, turning to hear what Queen Camilla had to say. "Of course, Queen Camilla. What is it?" "It concerns the upcoming state dinner for the Japanese delegation." Camilla's tone shifted into something firmer, more deliberate. "I have been considering the jewels, and your sapphire tiara would be absolutely perfect. Its deep blue color would harmonize beautifully with my navy gown and send a subtle yet powerful message to our Japanese friends." The words landed heavily. The George V/6 sapphire tiara was no ordinary ornament. It had been her wedding gift from the late queen, a piece bound to her with meaning and memory. To part with it, even for a night, felt like parting with a piece of herself. "I had not realized you intended to wear a tiara," Catherine replied carefully, choosing her words. "Perhaps your sapphire necklace and earrings might be more fitting." Camilla's smile thinned. "As queen, I must create the strongest impression before our guests. A tiara conveys the full majesty of the monarchy. Surely you appreciate the importance of presenting a united family front at such an occasion." Those words cut. United family front. It was no suggestion. It was a command veiled in diplomacy. Catherine hesitated, torn between loyalty to the crown and the personal bond she felt to the sapphires. She remembered the late queen's words spoken softly as if passing a blessing. "These sapphires suit you, my dear. They reflect your beauty and kindness." Now the idea of them perched on another's head, even for one evening, felt like betraying that trust. Yet standing against a reigning queen risked more than tension. It risked unraveling the fragile balance she had worked so carefully to preserve. Camilla pressed further, her voice sweetened but edged with certainty. The late queen would have approved of such symbolism. These jewels belong to the crown, not to one individual. "Catherine, you have always shown such grace in these matters. It would mean a great deal to me, and more importantly to the crown." There it was, the invocation of the crown, a pressure impossible to push back against without consequence. Catherine steadied her voice, though inside she recoiled. "If it is truly your wish, then the tiara will be at your disposal for the dinner." Camilla's eyes shone with quiet triumph. "How very thoughtful of you. I knew I could rely on your good sense." She rose with elegance, smoothing her gown, and leaned forward to brush Catherine's cheek with a perfunctory kiss. "You have relieved me greatly, my dear. Our guests will be most impressed." When the door closed, Catherine sank into the nearest chair, exhaling the breath she didn't know she had been holding. Her composure cracked in the solitude of the room. She looked toward the vase of white roses, once pure and calming, now stark reminders of how duty had smothered sentiment. She reached out, adjusting a single bloom as though restoring order to the flowers might restore it. Within herself, duty had won the moment, but deep inside a quiet vow stirred. The tiara would return to her keeping, and its meaning would not be forgotten. But in the palace, nothing stayed secret for long. By evening, whispers coiled through the corridors like smoke, seeping from the blue drawing room to the kitchens, offices, and stables. Within hours, every staff member knew that Queen Camilla had asked for George V's sixth sapphire tiara, and Princess Catherine had yielded. The story took on new colors with every retelling. Some swore Catherine had resisted until the very last. Others claimed she'd given it up with grace. But the core truth was steady as stone. The tiara was leaving her hands. Meanwhile, in her private rooms, Catherine tried to bury herself in correspondence, but her hands kept drifting to the sapphire earrings she wore. Their faint glow was a reminder of the tiara, lying in its velvet case, waiting to be taken. She could not banish the image of that case sitting empty. Meanwhile, Lady Susan entered quietly, carrying a leather folder. "Your Royal Highness," she began softly, "I have reviewed the tiara's insurance documentation. If you wish to reconsider, there may be requirements that could offer you an honorable way forward." Catherine's head lifted sharply, a flicker of hope passing across her features. "What kind of requirements?" "Security clearance of 48 hours. Lady Susan explained, "Environmental conditions during transport, and most crucial of all, written approval from Prince William for any transfer of personal wedding gifts." For the first time since her reluctant concession, Catherine felt the weight in her heart ease, if only slightly. But by the following day, her faint hope was dashed. Queen Camilla's team moved with efficiency. Insurance waivers were signed, security clearances pushed through, environmental protocols satisfied. Every obstacle Catherine might have leaned on had been swept aside as though anticipated long before Camilla set foot in the blue drawing room. Her agreement, she realized bitterly, had not been a choice. It had been the final stamp of approval on a plan already in motion. The night of the Japanese state dinner soon arrived. The state dining room glittered beneath 3 vast chandeliers, their crystal drops scattering 1,000 shards of light. The long table gleamed with gold-rimmed china, polished silver, and cutlery fit for emperors. Diplomats, cabinet ministers, and figures of high society moved among the grandeur in silken gowns and tailored tuxedos, a stage set to impress. But Catherine was not there. Officially, her absence was explained away as a scheduling conflict. The truth, however, was far more personal. Catherine could not bring herself to stand in that room and watch the tiara, the late Queen's gift, her gift crown, another woman's head. Instead, she remained in her private sitting room, the glow of the television screen, her only company. Her pulse quickened as the broadcast rolled on. First the Emperor's arrival, then the formal greetings, and finally the sweeping shots of the reception. She braced herself for the inevitable, and then it came. Queen Camilla stepped into the frame, bathed in light beneath the chandeliers. The sapphire tiara blazed at her brow, its blue stones catching fire with every camera flash. It was breathtaking, everything Camilla had intended it to be. Commentators praised the choice immediately, hailing it as magnificent, the perfect pairing with her navy gown. Catherine leaned forward, her breath caught in her throat. Then she heard it. The commentator, with all the certainty of authority, attributed the tiara to the late Queen Mother. The era struck like a blow. Not only had her wedding gift been claimed visually, but now before the eyes of the world, its true story was being rewritten. By dawn, Catherine knew every newspaper in Britain and plenty abroad would carry the same mistake, repeating the false attribution until it calcified into public memory. Something sacred had been taken from her, not just the tiara itself, but the truth of its meaning. Still, she could not look away. On screen, every angle lingered on the sapphires, catching their fire as Camilla turned, smiled, and charmed dignitaries. Photographers clamored for the best shots, ensuring that by morning, Catherine's gift would be immortalized in print as part of Camilla's crown. When the Japanese emperor admired the tiara, Catherine wondered bitterly what tale Camilla was spinning. Surely not the real one. Surely not Elizabeth's gift given in trust. Lady Susan entered softly, setting down a tray of tea. "The cameras adored the sapphires," she said gently. Her words meant as comfort. Catherine only nodded, unable to find her voice. On screen, Camilla lifted her glass for the formal toast. The sapphires caught the light with cruel brilliance. To the world, they symbolized majesty. To Catherine, they burned with memory. Elizabeth's hands resting tenderly upon her head, whispering words of blessing. Yes, the tiara would return, but it would never again feel wholly hers. That night, something had been broken in Catherine, but this would be nothing in comparison to what Prince William would do. Prince William's return from his trip had been slowed by brutal weather. His helicopter was forced to divert to Yorkshire, turning what should have been a stress-free journey into an overnight delay. By the time he finally reached Kensington Palace, exhaustion weighed heavily on him. Yet, even through his fatigue, the thought of seeing Catherine after 3 days apart lifted him. He went straight to her study, expecting the warmth of their usual reunion. But instead, he was met with something else. He found her seated at her desk, surrounded by papers and correspondence. To anyone else, she might have looked perfectly composed. But William knew better. After 14 years of marriage, he had learned to read the truth in the small things. The tense grip on her pen, the rigid line of her shoulders, and the faint tightness around her eyes. These were Catherine's tells, the sign she was holding back emotions too heavy to voice. "Darling, I missed you," he murmured, bending to kiss her forehead before settling into the chair beside her. "How was the Japanese state dinner?" "I caught some coverage, though the connection was dreadful." Her pen froze mid-sentence. The silence stretched a fraction too long. "It went very well from what I understand," she said carefully. "Very diplomatic, very successful." William frowned. Normally she recounted such evenings in vivid detail, eager to share her impressions. The neutrality of her reply made his stomach tighten. "You didn't attend." "I thought it was in your calendar." "I had other commitments," she answered softly, eyes lowered. Camilla represented the family beautifully. The tiara looked lovely on her. The words hit him like ice water. At first he struggled to make sense of them. Then the realization landed, his jaw clenched. "She wore your tiara," he said slowly, the steel creeping into his voice. "The sapphire tiara." Catherine's composure cracked. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, betraying the storm she had tried so hard to contain. The sight ignited something fierce in William, an anger that shattered the careful diplomacy drilled into him. All his life, "She asked to borrow it," Catherine whispered. "She insisted it was appropriate for the delegation. I could hardly refuse without seeming uncooperative." The words burned in his chest. He turned away, pacing to the window, his hands clenched. The sapphire tiara was not just another heirloom. It was his grandmother's personal wedding gift to Catherine. He remembered her telling him privately that the sapphires symbolized Catherine's steadfast spirit, her constancy in joining the family. To see them paraded as a diplomatic prop felt like an insult to her memory. "She asked you to give her your wedding present," he bit out, "and used it to parade in front of foreign dignitaries." "She framed it as duty," Catherine replied, her voice heavy with apology. She said the late queen would have wanted treasures like that to be worn for state occasions, that the jewels belonged to the crown, not the individual. William turned sharply. "That is manipulation, nothing less." His voice shook with controlled fury. "Where is it now?" "Still with Camilla's staff," Catherine admitted quietly. "They mentioned official portraits before it's returned." That casual extension of the loan twisted the knife further. To William, it was no longer a matter of jewelry. It was an assault on loyalty, on memory, on the sanctity of a gift that had bound Catherine to his grandmother's trust. The rest of the afternoon, William made discreet inquiries, calling on the quiet network of staff who had served his family loyally for decades. And what he uncovered did not soothe him. It hardened him. The most unsettling testimony came from Patricia Hartwell, the senior dresser. She met him in private, her voice trembling with a mix of reverence and indignation. "Your Royal Highness, this is not the first time. Over the past 18 months, there have been requests, personal items of Princess Catherine's, each time framed as family duty or diplomatic necessity." William's jaw tightened. "What sort of items?" "A few accessories, even clothing, for certain appearances." Mrs. Hartwell hesitated, then added, "Each time the princess complied, but afterward she seemed diminished. The staff has noticed her distress." William's anger cooled into something sharper, a cold, deliberate calculation. This wasn't one misstep. It was a pattern, a slow erosion of Catherine's autonomy, hidden beneath the guise of solidarity and duty. To him, it looked less like tradition and more like bullying. Later, in a carefully arranged meeting, Sir Edward Peaton confirmed the staff's unease. Department heads are increasingly concerned about the precedent being set, he confided. The line between personal gifts and crown property is foundational. If it blows, it undermines centuries of protocol. Has anyone confronted the Queen directly? William pressed, his voice edged with quiet fury. So Edward's reply was cautious. There have been efforts through the proper channels, but nothing has shifted the pattern. The household had reached its limit. Their loyalty to Catherine is clear, but their positions leave them powerless to defend her. That responsibility now rested squarely on William. That evening, he placed a private call to his father, hoping, almost against reason, that the king might intervene. Instead, the conversation left him more disheartened than ever. Charles dismissed his concerns with weary detachment, insisting Camilla was only fulfilling her role with dignity. Jewels, Charles remarked, were meant to be worn, not locked away. William's patience fractured. That tiara was Granny's wedding gift to Catherine, he argued. It was not meant to be paraded as a stage prop before foreign dignitaries. But Charles brushed him off. William, you're being dramatic. Family members have always shared jewelry. It is tradition. The call ended unresolved, leaving William with that familiar ache of disappointment his father always seemed to summon. If Charles would not protect Catherine, then he would. Back in their apartments, he found her attempting to read, her gaze drifting from the page. He sat beside her, taking her hands. I spoke with father. Alarm flickered in her eyes, and she urged him not to quarrel with his family. The tiara will be returned, she whispered. Let it go. But William's grip tightened. This was no longer about a tiara. It was about her dignity, her place, and her worth. Granny had given her that gift out of love and trust, a symbol that she belonged. To see it misused was to see that memory trampled. Catherine's composure broke, tears spilling as he held her close, rage and tenderness mingling in his chest. Tomorrow, he vowed, I will confront Camilla myself. The next morning, William demanded a private meeting with Queen Camilla. No aides, no witnesses. He deliberately chose the morning room at Clarence House, a space so closely tied to Camilla that she would not mistake the encounter for a trap. He wanted it plain. This was no petty quarrel. It was a reckoning.